Ryan Hayes pressed his gloved hand against the cold metal wall of the abandoned space station, feeling the vibration of old systems still running somewhere deep in its corridors. The dust floated slowly in the low gravity, catching the beam of his flashlight as he moved forward with careful steps. His team followed behind him, their breathing filling the communication channel in short, measured sounds. The station orbited Mars, an ancient structure left behind by a civilization that had vanished long ago from the moment they arrived. Ryan had felt drawn to explore it, as if something was calling to him from within the darkness. The human exploration mission was meant to find technology, knowledge, anything that could help Earth's position in the galactic community. Humanity was young, barely 200 years into space travel, and the universe was full of dangers and wonders they were still learning to understand. Captain Lisa Morrison walked beside Ryan, her scanner showing faint energy signatures in the chamber ahead. "We should wait for reinforcements from the ship," she said, her voice steady and professional. "We don't know what could be in here." Ryan nodded, respecting her caution, but something pulled at him to move forward. He had always been the kind of person who needed to see things with his own eyes to believe them. Talk of ancient weapons and lost civilizations meant nothing until you stood before them yourself. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, and what they found made everyone stop. In the center of the room stood a crystalline pod, perfectly preserved and still humming with life. A figure lay inside it, unmistakably alive, despite being frozen in suspension. A woman of extraordinary appearance rested there, her skin pale like starlight, her features sharp and precise in the way she lay. There was something regal and dangerous, like a sleeping predator. "This is impossible," whispered Marcus, the team's chief scientist, stepping closer to the pod with his scanner raised. The readings made no sense to him. The technology around the pod was far beyond anything humanity had achieved, yet it was maintaining perfect stasis. "She's been here for centuries, maybe longer," but that was not what caught Ryan's attention. The object that made him stop cold was the sword resting on a pedestal beside the pod. It was long and curved, crafted from a metal that seemed to shift between silver and deep blue when light touched it. The blade was pristine, untouched by time or rust. Ancient symbols covered the hilt, and warnings were carved into the pedestal in multiple languages. The warnings appeared in human English too, probably added long after the pod was sealed. "Do not disturb. Do not touch. The cost of waking her will be paid." In blood, Ryan read the warnings 3 times, each word seeming heavier than the last. But his eyes kept returning to the woman in the pod. She looked peaceful, as if she might wake at any moment and wonder why the world had changed around her. "Step away from the sword," Lisa commanded, her hand moving to the weapon at her side. "That's not a request." "Hayes, I'm not touching it," Ryan replied. But he did not step away. He kept staring at the woman, at the way her hand was positioned near the crystal wall of the pod, as if she had been reaching for something when they froze her. Who was she? Who put her here, and why? Marcus was working through the data on his scanner, trying to make sense of the readings. The pod itself was generating energy from an unknown source, something that should have died out centuries ago. "The language on these carvings," he said slowly, "they match no known civilization I've ever studied. Most of them are extinct for at least 200 years. The dating on this station suggests it's ancient, probably from the height of the Valdor Empire." The name hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning and history. The Valdor Empire had collapsed long ago, their territory swallowed by other powers, their people scattered throughout the galaxy. Some former Valdor had reformed and joined peaceful communities. Others were still feared, still whispered about in the dark corners of space stations and colonial outposts. Ryan felt something in his chest tighten. The woman in the pod wore armor beneath her resting clothes, delicate but clearly designed for combat. The way her muscles were defined, even frozen, suggested a warrior of exceptional skill. "They imprisoned her here," he said quietly. "They put her in this pod and left her. And they made sure no one would wake her. And we should leave her exactly as we found her," Lisa said, her voice firm. "We report this to command and let them decide what to do. We are explorers, not tomb robbers. And we are not waking anything that comes with a warning like that." The team began to back away from the chamber. But Ryan lingered just a moment longer. He looked at the woman one more time, trying to imagine the story of how she came to be here, what she had done to earn such careful imprisonment. Then he turned to follow his team back to the corridor as they walked toward the exit. None of them noticed the faint glow in the pod behind them. The glow was so subtle that no scanner would have caught it. A glow that seemed to strengthen with each step. Ryan Hayes took toward the ancient sword resting on its pedestal. It would only be a matter of time before someone made the choice to return, to ask the questions that duty and curiosity demanded be answered, and that choice would change everything. 3 days passed before Ryan returned to the chamber alone, breaking every protocol and safety rule in the Human Exploration Handbook. He told his team he was running additional sensor tests, a lie that sat heavy on his conscience. But he could not shake the feeling that something important was waiting for him in that vast dark room. The sword had stayed in his thoughts, constantly, and the woman in the pod seemed to be reaching out to him across the centuries. The chamber was exactly as they had left it. Silent and still, Ryan walked slowly toward the pedestal, his boots making soft sounds against the metal floor. His heart was beating faster than normal, and he tried to calm himself, tried to think of reasons why he should turn around and leave. The warnings were still there, carved deep into the stone. Do not touch, do not disturb. The cost will be paid in blood, but Ryan had always been the kind of person who questioned authority and pushed against boundaries. He had grown up reading stories about heroes who broke the rules to save the day, about people who made the hard choices when everyone else was too afraid. His hand reached out slowly, trembling just slightly as his fingers approached the hilt of the sword. The moment his skin made contact with the metal, everything changed. The pod behind him exploded with light, a brilliant flash that turned the darkness into white fire. The woman inside woke with a gasp that echoed through the chamber like the cry of a wounded beast. The crystalline walls of the pod shattered outward, and she fell forward onto the metal floor, gasping for air as if she had been drowning. The armor that covered her body gleamed in the emergency lights, and her eyes opened with a rage so pure and ancient that Ryan took several steps backward. Unable to move, Callistra of the Valder rose to her feet in one smooth motion. Her muscles remembering war and combat. Despite the long sleep, she looked around the chamber with wild eyes, trying to understand what had happened, where she was, why everything was wrong. The sounds of the station registered in her mind. The hum of different machines, the way the gravity felt slightly wrong, the very air smelled different. Her eyes locked onto Ryan, and she moved toward him with the speed of a predator. Ryan ran, his soldier's training kicking in as he sprinted toward the door. The woman caught him with a hand that felt like an iron band, lifting him off the ground with one arm as if he weighed nothing. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice like grinding metal, like the sound of ancient war. "Which faction sent you? Have the Valder betrayed me?" "No," Ryan gasped, struggling for breath. "I am Ryan Hayes, human from Earth. We are not Valder. We found you by accident." Callistra's grip tightened, and Ryan saw stars in his vision. She was reading something in his face, something in his words that made her confusion grow deeper. Humans. She spat the word like poison. The young species from the forgotten world, the ones who hide at the edges of space. "You dare to touch my sword. You dare to wake me. Do you understand the price of such arrogance?" Lisa's voice came through the communication channel, urgent and filled with fear. "Ryan, we have weapons locked on your position. Step away from the target now." Callistra's head snapped toward the sound, her warrior instincts recognizing the threat immediately. She hurled Ryan away from her with enough force to send him crashing against the far wall. His breath exploded from his lungs on impact, and he lay gasping on the floor, pain shooting through his ribs. The woman moved toward the exit with the grace of a trained fighter, but her movements were not quite right. The 200 years of sleep had made her weaker. Slower than she had been, she made it only 10 steps before the exhaustion hit her like a physical wall. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. Her body was still recovering, still remembering how to function after so long. The rage in her eyes was still present. But now there was something else there too. Confusion and disorientation. Ryan lay on his side, trying to breathe, trying to think through the pain. His team was coming, weapons ready, prepared to treat this woman as a threat to be eliminated. But he had touched the sword. He had woken her. And somehow that felt like an obligation he could not ignore. "Stay back." He called into his communicator. "Stand down. All of you, stand down. Captain Hayes, is that a direct order?" Lisa's voice was strained. "Professional it is," Ryan said, pushing himself up slowly. "Nobody fires unless I say so." Callistra watched him with eyes full of ancient memories and fresh confusion. She had expected to wake to the sound of alarms, to the smell of burning ships, to the heat of combat, and instead there was only silence and pain and a strange young man who had the audacity to survive her rage. "You woke me," she said, her voice quieter now but no less dangerous. "You broke the seal. Now you must face the consequence of that action." Ryan pulled himself to his feet, every muscle screaming in protest. "I'm sorry," he said. And he meant it. "I did not understand what I was doing, but I am here now, and maybe we can talk about what happens next." Callistra laughed, a sound like the breaking of glass. She had ruled galaxies, commanded armies that numbered in the billions. And she was being spoken to by a child species, as if she were someone to be negotiated with. "There is nothing to talk about." "Human," she said, but even as she spoke, her eyes began to close, her body demanding rest after centuries of frozen sleep. "You have made your choice, and I will make mine when I have the strength to move again." She collapsed fully on the floor, her breathing becoming deep and measured, her eyes closing despite the war that still burned in her mind. Ryan stood above her, breathing hard, wondering what he had done and what would come next. The sword rested on its pedestal still, waiting, as if it knew that the real story was only just beginning. Callistra woke 6 hours later in a holding cell that was designed to contain dangerous individuals. The walls were reinforced steel, and the door was locked with multiple security systems. Ryan had insisted that she not be harmed, not be killed or imprisoned permanently. But the team needed to keep her contained until they understood what she was and what she wanted. When her eyes opened, she lay still for a moment, remembering where she was. Remembering the touch of the young human's hand on her sword, she sat up slowly, testing her muscles, feeling them respond better than before, but still weak from the long sleep. There was water on a table beside her, and ration bars wrapped in plastic. She did not recognize the materials, did not understand the packaging. The technology was so different from what she had known, so crude in some ways and inexplicably advanced in others. Ryan came to her that evening, alone and unarmed. He sat across from her on the other side of a transparent barrier, just close enough to talk. "I know you are angry," he said quietly. "I know I woke you from a sleep that was meant to protect you, or perhaps to punish you. I am sorry for that. But I would like to understand who you are." Callistra stared at him for a long time before she spoke. "You should kill me," she said finally. Your instincts tell you I am dangerous. You are correct. I have killed more beings than your species has people. I have conquered worlds that had millions of inhabitants. I burned cities because they did not bow fast enough. Why did they put you to sleep then? Ryan asked. Your own people. Why did they imprison you instead of just executing you if you were so dangerous? The question seemed to surprise her. She looked away, her jaw clenching. Because, she said slowly, because my brother could not bring himself to kill me, despite everything I had done. Despite all the death that followed in my wake, he said that imprisoning me was mercy, that someday the galaxy would change enough that I might understand what I had destroyed, what I had lost while I was busy winning everything over the next few days. Ryan visited her many times. He brought a translation device that he had programmed with information about the past 200 years. He explained how the Valder Empire had crumbled, how the worlds that Callistra had conquered had risen up and built their own futures, how some of their former victims had become more advanced, more prosperous than they had ever been under her rule. He told her about the new alliances, the fragile peace that had been built among the scattered peoples of the Galactic Callistra. Listened with an expression that was hard to read. Sometimes she seemed angry, sometimes sad, sometimes thoughtful. You tell me that my empire ended, she said once. That everything I fought for, everything I built, it has all become dust and memory. But you speak of this as if it is a good thing, as if the world is better without my rule. It is, Ryan said simply. The worlds you conquered are happier now, freer now. They make their own choices instead of serving your will. That is worth more than any conquest. Freedom. Callistra said the word as if it was foreign on her tongue. I have never understood this obsession with freedom. A people need structure. They need someone strong to guide them. Left to their own devices, they make foolish choices. Maybe sometimes, Ryan agreed. But they are their choices to make, their mistakes to learn from. That is what makes them human. And it is what makes other species valuable too. We grow by making mistakes and learning from them. Ryan began to teach her about humanity, specifically about how humans had survived on a harsh world. How they had learned to work together, not because they were forced to, but because cooperation made them stronger. We are not the strongest species, he explained. But we have survived because we adapt, because we care for our young and our weak, because we can cooperate on a scale that other species find surprising. Callistra listened to these lessons with something that might have been curiosity. She asked questions about human warfare, about human politics, about the ways humans approach problems. You waste so much time talking, she said once, when you could simply make decisions and enforce them. Why do you allow your people to argue about the right path? Because better ideas come from hearing many voices, Ryan replied. Sometimes the person with the lowest rank has the best solution. How would we ever know if we did not listen? She spent hours watching information about human history through the translation device. She saw wars where humans fought each other. But she also saw humans who gave their lives to save strangers. Humans who built beautiful things. Humans who created art and music and literature for no reason except that it brought joy. She saw humans who chose mercy when they had the power to seek revenge one day. She looked at Ryan and said something that seemed to cost her effort. Your people are weak by the measure of strength I have always known. Yet something about them is impressive. Is there something in human nature that I have not yet understood? Ryan smiled. Maybe it is that we understand that strength without kindness is just cruelty. Strength without purpose is just violence. The most powerful thing we have is our ability to choose to protect those we love. Callistra did not respond. But something had shifted in her expression. The anger was still there, still burning like an ancient fire. But it was no longer the only thing in her eyes. Understanding was beginning to grow. And with it came something dangerous, the possibility of change. The alarm came at midnight station time. A distress signal was detected on multiple frequencies. And within seconds, the station's defensive systems began to light up with warnings the Valder were coming. Not a small scouting party, but a full battle fleet. 3 massive warships were approaching. Their weapon systems already warming up. Their arrival was not a coincidence. Somehow word of Callistra's awakening had spread through the galaxy and reached the ears of those who still remembered her power. Ryan felt his blood turn cold as he heard the information transmitted through the command channel. The weapons they carried could destroy the station in minutes, could tear apart the human exploration vessel in seconds. Lisa Morrison was already coordinating an evacuation, ordering all personnel to prepare the escape shuttles, but there was a problem. The shuttles would only hold a fraction of the station crew, and the evacuation process would take at least 20 minutes. The Valder fleet would arrive in 12. Get me to the holding cell, Ryan said urgently, pushing his way toward the detention block. When he arrived, Callistra was already standing at the barrier, her ancient warrior senses having detected the change in the station's vibrations. The Valder Collective, she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. They've learned that I've awakened. They come to kill me or capture me, do they not? Yes, Ryan said, unlocking the barrier with the override code. They come to kill you and destroy the station. But there might be another way. There is no other way, Callistra said flatly. They will want to ensure I never pose a threat again. If I am aboard this station when they arrive, they will destroy everything to remove me. Your choice to wake me has sealed the fate of your people. No, Ryan said, and he held out his hand to her. Come with me. My people can fight. We are not warriors like you. But we have learned things in the centuries since you slept. We have learned how to work together, how to adapt to impossible situations. Help us. And help yourself. Callistra looked at him for a long moment, and then she took his hand. Her grip was still strong enough to crush bone, but she held him gently, with control. If I choose to help you, she said, it will be because I have decided that you are worth saving, not because I fear the Valder. Do you understand this distinction? I do, Ryan said. And he pulled her toward the armory. The command center became their headquarters. Lisa Morrison stared in shock as Ryan brought Callistra to her side. The legendary warrior woman moving with purpose. Her weak body pushed past its limits by will and training alone. We need to slow them down, Callistra said, her voice taking on the tone of someone who had commanded fleets. Your ship must leave immediately. Empty your station of all but those who can fight. We are explorers, not soldiers, Lisa said, her voice shaking. Then you will learn quickly, Callistra replied. Show me your weapons. Show me your ship's capabilities. Show me what you can do. The station transformed into a fortress in minutes. Callistra directed the placement of weapons, taught the human crew how to maximize their defensive positions, and showed them how to use their gravity well generators as a potential weapon against the incoming fleet. The humans worked with a desperation born of survival instinct. And what surprised Callistra most was how little they complained, how they simply accepted her orders and did what needed to be done. When the Valder fleet emerged from faster-than-light space, they were not expecting resistance. They expected to find a vulnerable scientific facility and a weakened version of Callistra. Easy prey. The moment they began their attack runs, the station responded with coordinated fire from multiple defense positions. Callistra stood in the command center, her instincts singing with the music of battle, directing defenses with precision that made Lisa stare in wonder. But the Valder had overwhelming firepower. The shields began to fail one by one. The station took hits that shook the entire structure. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Emergency bulkheads sealed off damaged sections of the facility. The gravity generators overloaded as Callistra pushed them beyond their design limits, creating a spike in the local space-time. that damaged one of the Valder ships. Still, the Valder kept coming, their weapons tearing through the station's defenses with methodical efficiency. The evacuation shuttle was launched, carrying the non-combat personnel toward the relative safety of the outer system. Ryan fought alongside Callistra in the command center, feeding her information, helping her coordinate defenses with human engineering, knowledge mixed with her ancient warrior's instinct. "They will break through," Callistra said quietly. "You have done well, but my people's weapons are superior to yours. We have perhaps 5 minutes before the primary shields fail." Ryan looked at her standing there. This warrior who had conquered galaxies. This woman who had slept for 200 years, waiting for a future that never came. "Then we make those 5 minutes count," he said. "We save as many as we can. We show them that humanity means something." The last offense came from an unexpected source when the lead Valder ship moved to deliver the killing blow to the station. Callistra seized control of the ancient sword that still rested in the chamber below. The weapon began to glow with power that humans had no words to describe. A power that had been dormant for 2 centuries. A beam of pure energy shot from the blade upward through the station and struck the Valder ship directly. The impact was catastrophic. The ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light. The 2 remaining Valder ships withdrew, shocked by the display of ancient power. Their commanders did not understand what had happened, did not know that a sleeping legend had awakened and was no longer the threat they had hoped to capture. She was something else entirely now, something that had learned to care about a species that was not even her own. The station fell silent after the Valder ships withdrew into the black expanse of space. Callistra stood in the command center, breathing heavily, the ancient power of the sword still resonating through the station structures. She had not used that weapon in 2 centuries, had hoped never to use it again. But in this moment, for these people, she had chosen to draw upon power she had once wielded to conquer worlds. Ryan approached her slowly, and to his surprise, she did not move away when he reached her. She looked at him with eyes that held something beyond the rage that had burned there before. "You fought," she said quietly, not as a warrior assessing combat capability, but as someone experiencing genuine recognition of another being's courage. "Your people fought knowing they would likely die." "Yes," Ryan said. "That is what humans do. We protect those we care about. We stand together against impossible odds. We choose to fight not because we believe we will win, but because some things are worth fighting for." Callistra was quiet for a long moment. The station shuddered around them as engineering teams worked to stabilize the damaged systems. The evacuation shuttles had carried away the scientists and support personnel, leaving only those whose skills were needed for survival. The human crew moved through the corridors with purpose and quiet determination, helping each other, sharing what supplies remained, demonstrating the very principles that Ryan had tried to teach Callistra about. "When I ruled," Callistra said slowly, choosing each word with deliberate care, "my subjects feared me. They obeyed because disobedience meant death. I measured my power by the extent of my dominion and the fear I inspired. But I did not understand that the most powerful force in any civilization is not fear, but loyalty. Not domination, but shared purpose." The repairs to the station took 5 days. During that time, something remarkable happened. Callistra began to work alongside the human crew, not as a commanding general directing subordinates, but as a partner teaching and learning in equal measure. She showed them techniques of ancient engineering, ways to maximize efficiency and safety. She also began to understand the human perspective on life, the way they could find joy and humor even in difficulty, the way they could offer comfort to each other through kindness rather than hierarchy. Ryan brought her to the observation deck on the 6th day after the battle. They stood looking down at Earth, a blue marble spinning in the darkness. "That is your world," Callistra said, not as a question but as recognition. Yes, Ryan replied. It is small and fragile, but it is home to billions of humans, each with their own dreams and hopes, each important to those around them. That is what I tried to show you, that individual lives matter. That strength means nothing without purpose and compassion. Callistra looked at Earth for a long time without speaking. When she finally spoke, her voice held something new, something that had not been there before. I slept for 200 years, she said. My people put me into stasis to stop the endless cycle of conquest and war. They hoped that perhaps someday I might understand what I had done, what I had lost while winning everything I woke to anger and confusion. But you showed me something different. You showed me that there is honor in protection, wisdom in humility, strength in choosing mercy. What will you do now? Ryan asked. Though he thought he already knew the answer. I will stay, Callistra said simply, not as a queen, not as a conqueror, but as someone choosing to belong to something greater than myself. Your species has proven resilient and capable of understanding things that took my people millennia to learn. You have shown me that youth is not weakness but potential. I would like to be part of that potential. If you will have me. Ryan felt something release in his chest, a tension he had been carrying since the moment he woke her. We will have you, he said. Not everyone will trust you easily. Many will fear you because of your history, but we will give you the chance to become something new. The journey back to Earth took weeks. During that time, Callistra worked with the human crew, helped them repair the damaged exploration vessel, and began the long process of learning human culture, not just intellectually but experientially. She learned to laugh at human humor that made no logical sense. She discovered human music and found it inexplicably moving. She watched humans interact with each other, saw how they resolved conflicts not through domination but through dialogue and compromise. When they arrived at Earth, word of their discovery had already spread through the human news networks. Captain Lisa Morrison gave a statement to the media explaining the alliance, emphasizing that Callistra had chosen to protect human lives and would be treated as a diplomatic guest of honor. Some people celebrated the possibility of learning from an ancient civilization. Others protested the presence of someone with such a violent history, but the humans, true to their nature, decided to chance to understand rather than to. For Callistra stood in Ryan's office overlooking the capital city of one of Earth's largest nations. Below them, millions of humans lived their lives going to work, raising families, creating art and music and knowledge. She could have ruled all of this, but she understood now that ruling was not the same as belonging. I have a question, she said to Ryan. During the 200 years that I slept, did humans face moments where they had to overcome their own worst impulses? Did they ever come close to destroying themselves? Yes, Ryan admitted. Many times we have fought terrible wars, committed terrible acts, but we also have a capacity for change, for understanding, for redemption that even we don't fully understand. Then perhaps, Callistra said, and there was something almost like hope in her ancient eyes. Perhaps I am not so far from redemption either. Perhaps we can both learn what it means to not just survive, but to truly live. The sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Callistra watched it with the wonder of someone seeing the world for the first time, in a way. She was seeing it for the first time. The woman who had slept 200 years was finally awake, finally understanding that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was not a sword, not ancient technology, not an empire built on conquest. It was the choice to stand with others, to protect those you care about, to accept that strength meant nothing without compassion. The deadliest war bride had learned at last what it meant to choose peace.